Cuphead's hardest mod ever. It basically makes every boss in the game close to impossible. But I decided I was going to make it even more impossible by using my USB steering wheel. Today I'll be beating Aisle 2 because I've never played it before in my life. And I'm going to show you exactly how I did it with my beautiful wheel. And at the end, I'm going to rank the bosses based off my experience. Yeah, this challenge was a big mistake. It was pretty bad. So the way the wheel works is that every time I turn the wheel, Cuphead moves horizontally. And when I use the D-pad, he moves vertically. I use the back buttons to jump, and I use the pedals to dash and shoot. And the rest of the controls they're somewhere on the wheel. I don't quite remember. It's been like a week since I've done this. You gotta give me a break. So now since you know how the wheel works, so let me tell you, I could not have picked a worse fight to start off with. Because this is one of the hardest fights I've ever beaten. And the reason is because near the end of the fight, there's a 1-minute section that is arguably the hardest 1 minute of any fight I've ever beaten. I'll talk more about that when I get there. For most of this fight, I'm going to try and move as little as possible so I can have control of Jimmy the Great's attacks. And by dashing, I can quickly gain speed and shrink into smaller spaces if I need to, which is extremely helpful. Like in this next phase here, where I need to dash to quickly maneuver through these moving saw blades so I can take out these walls before I get crushed. And let me tell you, from what I've seen, this part is so much more intense than the normal version of it. Everything is much faster and so much tighter. If you're claustrophobic and you played this, yeah, you'd probably drop dead right on the spot. But the end of this fight is like 50 times harder. Now, since I'm finally out of that section, I can finally just chill and have a nice little coffee break. Seems like a perfect time anyway, since there's nothing I need to worry about. All right, let's lock back in. I need to focus on filling up my super meter so I can set up a little trick that makes the next phase a little easier for me. But luckily, I get it all the way filled up just in time. The trick I was talking about has to do with this hat that's about to come on screen. How the hat works is pretty simple. It'll follow me around for about 8 seconds and then freeze to make an attack. So I'm going to use that to my advantage here and nuke right through Jimmy Kimmel to bait the hat to follow me to the other side of the screen. And once it makes its final move towards me, I'm going to move right back over to the left side. Now the hat's completely out of the way and I can focus on dodging Jimmy Carter's attacks by once again making small movements. I found this to be the most consistent way to get through this section. Until it wasn't, because now the stupid hat is coming back earlier than I expected and I don't have my super ready yet. So yeah, this is what I'd consider a pretty bad situation because I just lost full control of the fight. I do take a hit here, so there goes that beautiful S rank, but hey, that's okay because even if I did end up S ranking any of these fights, I'd probably be accused of cheating. And now for the part that makes this fight so hard. These pyramids shoot horizontal and vertical beams at the same time, and not only are all 3 of these pyramids always moving, but they give you almost no time to react to them. Sometimes only 1 will activate, and heck, even 2 will activate. And if you're not paying close enough attention here, you're going to die really fast. Here, I almost get hit. Yeah, I really don't know how I survived that, if I'm being honest. And then, of course, I immediately get hit. Not to mention the wheel's controls are really jank. So yeah, you could probably see why I struggled on this part. In fact, this part was so hard that I had to resort to pause buffering my way through it. If you don't know what pause buffering is, it's basically a technique used to do specific inputs on exact frames by spamming the pause button. And it's perfect for stuff like this where you need to think fast and do perfectly timed tricks to avoid getting hit. From here, it's just a game of patience and taking my time on his attacks and trying not to rush the pause buffering. And here I get in a really weird position where Jimmy Fallon's literally about to shoot me in the face, but I somehow end up dodging it anyways. I don't know. Call me a heckin' gamer. Sometimes the pyramids would also go off in really weird spots. Like here, I had to pause the game for a second to really figure out where the safest spot on the screen would be. And then I just had to YOLO it and hope that I was correct and I wouldn't get hit. I had a good amount of room of dodging that one, but sometimes like it'd be so tight where I'd be like literally frames away from getting hit from the lasers. It was so scary. This is where the adrenaline rush from the coffee break started to kick in, and I really started to panic here, but just in time because he's knocked out, baby. Look, I don't even know what I'm saying here, but I bet it goes hard. Baroness von Bonbon is the next fight, and she's actually a really easy fight because I found a way to cheese most of it. Throughout this fight, you'll see that most of her attacks can't even reach me if I stand in the left corner of the screen, which is pretty funny given that this is the hardest mod. But hey, it makes my life a whole lot easier since I have to go through all 4 mini bosses in one go. This is also the first fight I did on the ground instead of being in a plane. And it's a lot harder than being in a plane because now jumping and ducking are key elements. And jumping was a little awkward to do with the wheel, so you know, staying in the corner obviously helped me improve my skills. Candy Lady is getting a little more angry, so I gotta stop being lazy and move out of the corner for this little part. I'm just waiting for a good opening here to use my super so I don't get hit by the gumballs. And boom, should be dead. The final phase is coming up, and unlike the rest of this fight, it's pretty hard. So I'm going to need to practice for it. And what better way to do that than to play some good old Five Nights at Freddy's? I'm still a noob at Cuphead, so playing FNF on the hardest difficulty is a very necessary step in improving. All right, practice is done, and I'm feeling very confident, so let's get back to the fight. Here I accidentally get hit because I blinked, but that's okay because there's only one more part before the fight actually gets insane. Unfortunately, I can't use my corner here because the stupid cupcake frog thing would jump on me if I did. So I'm being extra careful as I try to do damage to the cupcake while dodging these little jelly bean guys. This guy really needs to die already, so I'm just gonna use my super here. And finally, a part of this fight that's actually worth my attention. That is just stupidly difficult for a wheel. Oh my goodness. But I managed to get through it anyways, thanks to my third hand that I showed at the beginning of this fight. You can skip back if you think I'm joking. This is a fast section, so let me explain what I'm doing. I need to parry these Patsy Menthols as much as possible so I can fill up my super meter. But the whole time, I have to dodge these really annoying heads. So I need to time my jumps and parries almost perfectly. I'm just trying to fill that up as fast as I can because the longer I'm in this section, the worse it gets. Overall, this was a pretty easy fight, but I wish I could say the same about Beppy the Clown, which is the stupidest fight in the game because it requires a lot of luck. And if you don't get lucky, then you're basically just as cooked as finding a girlfriend. This first part of the fight wasn't too bad once I understood what was going on. I'm just making sure I shoot the ducks that come my way so I have an opening to jump over Beppy if he tries to ram me, which was about 50-50 because this guy's AI is a piece of crud. To show you how dumb his AI is sometimes, there was a small chance that instead of ramming me, he'll just keep coming closer until he cornered me into the screen, and then he'd purposefully wait until there is a duck directly above me to ram me. Yeah, that's the kind of boss this guy is. After that first phase, we get to our first luck-based section. Woohoo. Which I was luckily able to do second try, as you can clearly see by my speedrun timer. The luck-based part of the section has to do with where the balloons spawn, how many balloons spawn at a time, and of course, when the train comes. The whole time in this section, there was only one thing going through my mind and one thing only. Take out the dog balloon things. Take them all out. Kill them all. Kill them all. They spawn so fast that if I don't take care of them, I'm going to get hit. That's just what's going to happen. And the train is just the cherry on top. It just makes it 10 billion times worse. If that wasn't bad enough, I can't go to the edge of the screens because one of the balloon spawn points is right there. For some reason. I don't know why. It's just right there, bro. Not to mention that this phase lasts an eternity. Oh my word. It is so long. It's so easy to mess up. One wrong input and you're basically pretty much done. It's just dumb. It's ridiculous. But somehow I made it out of this part without getting hit. Not really sure how I did. Oh, what's this? That's right. Back-to-back luck sections, baby. Let's go. It's Christmas. This fight is just so much fun, as you can see. Pretty straightforward phase. He's either going to come down on a yellow or a green horse, and his attacks will vary depending on the horse. Literally everything in this section is luck dependent. From which side of the screen he attacks on, to what color the horse is, to when the train is coming, which is the biggest issue I have with this section because the train would literally come at the worst possible times. I swear and guarantee your death. So I heavily relied on RNG for this part. So in a minute here, I'm purposely going to take damage because S rank is for sweaty gamers, and I unfortunately am not at that level yet. So there you go. I took a hit. Oh, and I'm just gonna take another hit to the face because, like, why not? It's not like I was going for S rank or anything. I messed up. And now for the final phase of the fight, and immediately the first thing I have to do is quickly jump onto these platforms as soon as I'm able to. So I just barely missed the train, which according to my first attempt is the hardest part of this fight. I missed! As you already know, this is my second attempt, so we're good. I learned from that silly mistake. Here, I'm just making sure to pay extra close attention to the background for the train because as soon as it shows up, I only have a fraction of a second to get back on these platforms. Something funny I noticed was that despite the train going really fast, for some reason, it still has one of the parry things on it. Like, you see how fast this thing is going? Do they expect us to parry off of that or something? My intrusive thoughts almost won because I want to try to get it. But maybe next time. And don't worry, I was definitely not mad at all that I purposefully got hit and missed out on an S-rank fight. That would have been a heckin' S tier, bro! What the actual soap is this? This game is 100% rigged. That would have been an S tier. The past 3 fights have been pretty interesting, but I promise you that what happens at the end of this fight, you're not gonna see coming. And it might leave you just as speechless as I was. But to get there first, I basically need to kill this bird. YouTube TOS is definitely not gonna be happy about this, but hey, game is game. I went into this fight thinking it was going to be like impossible with the wheel since apparently he's one of the hardest bosses in this mod. But nah, this guy got completely collapsed. I even found a way to avoid his main attack, which are these eggs that explode into a bunch of shells. If I lined up the back of my plane with the P on the HP bar, I could just ignore the shells because they couldn't even hit me, which was pretty nice because that's less work for me. Look, I'm willing to take any chance I get to cheese fights, all right? But this is where the fight takes a spicy turn. And it's probably my favorite phase of any fight in this video because of how satisfying it is. For a little bit of backstory on why I like this phase so much, in Undertale, Asgore is one of my favorite fights in the whole game. And my favorite attack in his fight is when he throws an insane amount of fireballs at the player from the corner of the screen. And this boss has a very similar attack to Asgore's, and I just find it so satisfying to dodge. And with the steering wheel, it just made a nice heckin' challenge. You could make it double the speed, and I'd probably like it just as much. That's just how fun this attack is, especially when you can pull it off. Sometimes these little birds would mess me up during this attack because they spawn right in front of me. However, 99% of the time, that wasn't an issue because they die right before they reached me anyways. If you struggle with dodging these feathers, I recommend putting your back against the wall and just making super tiny movements up and down. Other than that, though, his attacks are pretty much the same, except they're a little faster. He's just gonna cycle in between his feather and egg attacks until we knock him into the most skill-based part of the fight. This is the scariest part of the fight because I need to carefully move through his eggs to deal damage to him. And you probably already noticed by now, but he has a lot more eggs than he normally does in the fight. Usually he has 6, but now he's got freaking 10. So yeah, that makes a pretty big difference. The key here is just to be patient and wait for the best openings. And I'll admit, it can be really difficult to do that, but thankfully this phase isn't too long. Plus, I'm using a USB steering wheel, so there's no issues here. Here I take another hit, and I really don't know how I got hit there. One last opening. He should be dead here. Okay, no, he's not dead yet. Okay, now he's dead. And we move on to the part of the fight that left me speechless because I kind of broke it. This is what the final phase is supposed to look like. Just pure chaos and like a big mess. Like, I don't even know what's happening. So, of course, when I first saw this phase, I was like, yeah, ain't no way this is happening with steering wheel. Sorry. So I decided I would use the good old pause buffering technique. Yeah, remember that thing from the first fight? Should work, right? And yeah, it worked like a charm. Because Wally fell off the screen into the abyss from all the pause buffering. Yeah, like that's literally what happened, and it was not purposeful at all. Bro, what is bro doing? He's literally under the screen. You know what? I'm just gonna keep going. Look, call me a cheater, but like, it's not my fault that I unintentionally broke the fight somehow. Okay, yeah, it is kind of my fault that I abused the bug. I'm actually kind of glad this was the attempt because if this hadn't have been the attempt, I don't think anyone would have ever believed me that this happened. To show you how far this guy fell off screen, his heart that shoots bullets wasn't even visible, and it usually flies to the top of the screen when it makes an attack. I still did continue to pause buffer because I had to watch out for these pills, so it did take like 10 minutes to get through this phase. But GG, bro got cooked and now is legitimately being prepared to be cooked. On the other hand, Grim Matchstick is the final boss that puts everything I've learned with the wheel to the test. I mean, it's got everything you could possibly want in a fight. An annoying layout, stupid hitboxes, moving floors, RNG, chaotic attacks, It's just so much fun. And man, am I glad I did this fight last, because if this was one of the first fights I did, I probably would have given up within the first 2 seconds. This fight is the definition of pure chaos. I mean, just look at the screen. I don't even know what's happening. His tail comes up way more often. He shoots way more meatballs and beams. I have to make sure to keep jumping on the cloud so I don't fall to my death. And I have to make sure I'm actually looking at him to do damage to him. I mean, guys, there's so much going on. I just don't know. It was definitely not made for a wheel. I know, your brain's probably exploding right now, but hey, I don't blame you. My brain was also exploding. And this ain't even the hardest part of the fight yet. But now we finally make it out of the first phase, even though he's still shooting meatballs at me for some reason. We just gotta wait until he's done. And now, since it's officially phase 2, I can relax a little bit because this phase is completely free. I'm just gonna hang out on the top row of clouds so I don't get hit by these flame guys, because I'm really going to need all my lives for the last phase. So I am relying on a little bit of RNG here because I want the clouds to keep spawning on the top row, because I do not want to go any lower than I already am. Any lower than this is so dangerous because these flame guys are fast. Don't underestimate them. The only somewhat challenging part of this phase was jumping to the clouds, because technically they are blind jumps. And I don't know, I got used to them pretty fast though. It wasn't that bad. I get so close to getting hit here. He was so close. Luckily I don't, and now I'm at the hardest part of the fight that destroyed all of my sanity. And this is the reason why I was on this fight for 10 hours. You should really be scared of this part because this fight gets so much worse. The clouds get faster and he grows 2 more heads, which is kind of distracting. But the main reason is because of these fireballs he shoots. The hitboxes on these things are so crud, and they explode into smaller fireballs that are almost unavoidable if they get hit. So basically the whole time I'm making sure I never come into contact with these things, just like with women. And from there it's just a simple game of survival and only turning around to shoot Grim Matchstick when it's completely safe. And finally my super meter is filled up and I decide to risk it all and use it at the worst possible time ever, where if this doesn't KO, I get cooked like the bird. But I get the KO, and the grind to beat Aisle 2 of Master Quest with the steering wheel is finally over. Calls for a picture, baby. Since this is my first playthrough of Cuphead, I decided to rank these bosses based off of my experience. For most fun and enjoyable, Jimmy the Great takes the freaking cake. And for most difficult, Bedby the Clown, because he made me frown. The rhymes were not intended, by the way.